For better or worse, replacing human artistry with machines entirely kind of seems a little bit strange to me, and it just seems like it's not really what we're after. We don't want ChatGPT to write a fantastic book for us. We want it to help us. We want it to help us streamline our workflow, maybe to automate some of the more repetitive things, to provide more varieties, to kind of help us bring what we have in our minds and in our heads as creatives to life.
Hello, we're Global App Testing, and this is Building Globally, Lessons in Enterprise Product Growth. This is the fastest growing, most exciting podcast in product, and we will be looking at every single angle on how you can grow your enterprise product by talking to professionals in some extremely exciting businesses. On with the show.
Hello and welcome to another episode of Building Globally, Lessons in Enterprise Product Growth, brought to you by Global App Testing. I'm your host, Adam, and today we're delving into the world of B2B product growth with one of the most exciting individual products we've seen. Chaos helps a range of different users visualize things from furniture to buildings. And I'm fortunate enough to get to talk to their Chief Product Officer today, Kam Star. Kam has worked at Chaos for a year and a half and has held roles in graphics and gaming products in addition to his work at Chaos. Hi, Kam, how are you?
Thanks so much for having me, Adam. Great to see you.
Can we start just by explaining a little bit about what Chaos is for people who might not have heard of it?
Of course. I mean, so as you said, we create visualization software. We create software that allows artists and designers in multiple different industries bring their wildest dreams to life. We see ourselves really as pioneers of visualization technology, and whether you're an artist, or you're an architect, you're a product designer, you're a filmmaker who's using VFX, or even in gaming, we have a range of tools that, such as V-Ray and Corona and Enscape, that allows you to create really stunning photorealistic imagery and animation and bring whatever vision you have in your mind to life in unprecedented reality.
You've got loads. One of the things about Chaos is that you've got loads of different users, right? You've started with a kind of product and worked backwards to the many different use cases. I wonder if you could talk a little bit about how that those differences in the kind of people who use it has shaped the product and shaped the team around the product, shaped the business.
In some ways, I look at our product family like a box of chocolates. It's, each of them has got its unique taste, and it caters for a specific requirement for a specific quality that it has. And that diversity is really grown out of the variety of folks who use us. So as an architect, you are trying to solve different kinds of problems. And when you are trying to use real-time visualization, you are very interested in using and leveraging visualization to help you make better design decisions whilst you're designing. Whereas a VFX artist, for instance, that might be using something like V-Ray is interested in getting that highest quality photorealism to be able to get exactly the look that they want and to be able to communicate in a way that they want. And so the range of products that we have are some are used in multiple different spaces, but actually at a high level, we are trying to democratize visualization to give a whole range of people very powerful tools that is accessible. And some of them are about versatility. So I would say V-Ray is about pure versatility, and you can use it to run entire workflows of very large Hollywood studios. Whereas in the same vein, Corona is extremely simple to use and gives you a result that works straight out of the box. Or on the other hand, Enscape is just works, and it just works in the area that you are. So the way that these products have grown is really understand what it is the user is trying to do. And even though, yes, it's all visualization, yes, it's all realism, yes, it's all 3D, but actually they have different use cases, different areas, and different ways of working that you want to leverage. And so sometimes we talk about, having different kinds of cars. Sometimes you need a truck. Sometimes you need a sports car. Sometimes you need something a family would of seven would feel comfortable in. And so we have these different cars, and depending on which one you want to use, which product, and what your use case is, you would use a different one.
But in terms of, just to kind of seize on the car metaphor there, so do the cars all share a common engine, or are they completely different cars? Is it just the kind of the production line that they have in common?
There are some core technologies, and that are common. They're because we're trying to solve slightly different problems. There are some of the areas of the software where there is commonality, and we have shared services, and we have shared, for instance, proprietary file formats and ways of being able to move from one software to another quite easily. We're also making sure that if you learn how something works in one software, it does the same thing in another piece of software. So there are certainly synergies, and in terms of R&D, there is a lot of flow between the different teams. Some of those engines are necessarily different because they are, again, catering for a specific type of use. So if you are very much concerned about speed, and this is a design time, and you want to just be able to see what you're doing as you're kind of making the decisions, as an architect, you would use Enscape. As an architect who's very interested in creating the most photorealistic image that you possibly can, something that's indistinguishable from a photograph, then you may use Corona. And if you want to kind of upscale and do that at a very large scale, you would use V-Ray. So from the team's perspective, there's definitely some cross-pollination. We do leverage a lot of the R&D, and the teams do get together, and we have these horizontal initiatives that brings the different parts together so that we can learn from each other. And there are definitely times where we borrow from different parts of the business. One part would be going, okay, well, you solved that problem. How did you solve it? And how do we bring that into what we do? And sometimes it would be a straightforward case of using the SDK. Other times it may be rewritten for that specific hardware.
So in terms of with that diverse set of customers then, and with quite diverse requirements and problem sets, how do you do two things? A, how do you ensure that you are understanding customers, because there's a lot of different customers, and getting that information into the product team so that it's reflected in great products? And then B, how do you sort of prioritize your efforts there? Is it, I would imagine that for some of the products where you have smaller individual spends and it's more kind of marketing led, versus areas where you maybe have very significant customers who can kind of come in with feature shopping lists and that sort of thing. I wonder how you prioritize and how you understand what's the next thing that's needed for Chaos.
So we are extremely fortunate from the inside out. It's an incredible place to be. We don't just have customers, we have fans. And it's not just fans, we have mega fans. People who will just engage with us on a daily basis if they have the opportunity. There are multiple facets to answer this question properly. One of the things we have done traditionally is make sure that we hire some of our ex-customers, so be they architects or architectural visualizer or VFX specialists, or people who've either used our software or are well ingrained, or they've used it for many, many years. So within the teams that create software for architects, for instance, they're quite a large portion of the product managers, they're either ex-architects or they're ex-architectural visualizers. So they understand this, and they can very easily then connect with and talk to our customers in a language that they understand, which is very helpful. Certainly if you've had someone who's felt the pain, that's very helpful. We also have forums for each of our products, from a few hundred to maybe even more, to even into the thousands of people who are contributing to these forums, who are giving us feedback on what they don't like or what they do like and how they're using something. We have ideation portals where anybody can suggest ideas and vote for those. And for the kind of the bigger customers or more established customers, we also run customer advisory boards, which meet 2 or 3 times a year, and we have those kind of by sector. So we have one in the AEC, the architecture, engineering, construction. We have one in media and entertainment, and we have one in product and product design. And actually, the list of folks who are there, some of the in M&E, these are some of the biggest studios in the world and some of the biggest producers of media. In similarly for architecture, I think we serve something like 95 out of the top 100 biggest architectural companies in the world. So there is a huge amount of input in terms of what the direction is. And of course, that brings us to the other part of your question is, how do we then prioritize? How do we prioritize, in what needs to be done, which is kind of the bread and butter of a product manager. You have a very, very long list of things that need to be made, and how do you prioritize those? And to be honest, there isn't just a one size fits all, depending on how much effort something will be, depending on what the impact we think it would be, how many users it might touch, or what it would solve. At a high level, we use a desirability, feasibility, viability framework where we can actually more objectively verify and validate how desirable a particular feature or a capability or even a new product is in relation to everything else. And that is very much driven by our customers, both existing and those who are maybe not using our customers, who are not using our software today, which is also important. The feasibility aspect really comes from engineering, which is, can we do this and how long will it take? Have we done this before? Do we know how this works? Or do we need to kind of create this? And again, that could be enumerated and you can get a kind of a number associated with that, with the easiest being something that'll take one person 1 day to do, and the hardest being something that'll take 100 people, 5 years to do. And with viability, that is something that is across the business, mostly driven by marketing and sales, and perhaps even more sales in terms of how viable this would be as a proposition. Now, we take those into account, and then we apply a company strategy view to this as well. So you may then discover that something that is highly desirable doesn't actually align with our strategy, or something that is, something that is maybe highly desirable, but is, from a feasibility perspective, it's a huge amount of effort. It's still worth doing because it will put us in a better position in terms of a comparison in the market, in terms of what we can then deliver to our customers in terms of differentiation. And so it's an art and a science, and sometimes it falls a little bit more on the art side. But by and large, this is the kind of process we go through to try and then prioritize.
Last time we spoke, you said, you referred to the term red ocean, and you said that chaos operates in a red ocean. You've just been talking about company strategy. Could you reflect on that? What do you mean by red ocean, first of all, for people who are not familiar, and how has that impacted the way that you strategically think at Chaos?
So I think maybe to just explain the idea between a red ocean, what's a red ocean versus a blue ocean? A red ocean is full of sharks who are tearing everything apart. Everything is bloodied. The reason it's red is because there are so many predators in there trying to go after the same set of fish, and predators and the competitors are taking chunks out of each other. They're constantly fighting. And so if you imagine, and maybe sharks is the analogy, right? The red ocean analogy is one where competition is fighting and we're tearing pieces out of each other. And maybe you can see this today with like Google and OpenAI, like that space is kind of becoming a red ocean. And in the same vein, visualization industry is highly competitive. We have many established players that are vying for not a massively growing market, but reasonably growing. But they're vying for the same market share, and because of this space being rife with competition, and having to engage in all kinds of tactics, sometimes cutthroat tactics. There we go, cutthroat, red ocean, blood, right? All of that. This ends up in an environment where you do have to constantly innovate. You have to find new ways to make your offering more distinct. You have to be able to kind of solve problems in a way that's better. Sometimes those, and we, in our industry in particular, we have some new entrants and new players who've come in and said, everyone can have this stuff for free. And then we run with that for a few years and they go, oh, yeah, we maybe do be doing it. And that becomes really hard. How do you compete where, someone comes in and goes, I'm just going to cut this open. I'm going to make it free. And sort of those kinds of strategies make it really difficult to then grow, to for us, of course, we're very much focused on technology and our technological kind of leadership, but at the same time, being very user-centric, solving the real problem rather than a race to the bottom for price. To be able to kind of really offer the value with advanced features and fantastic support and ease of use that would be very hard for others to match. And this is the reality we're living in this space.
Is there a challenge there with the range of different customers that you're trying to cater to? I mean, you're trying to cater to a lot of different people. Some of those people are going to be price driven. Some of them are going to be prepared to compromise on quality. And you're going to have sales teams saying, look, we don't want to lose this market segment. I mean, is that a dynamic that goes on in Chaos?
To some degree, although when you consider the kind of the pricing, our software pricing, and then you look at the day rates of the people who use our software, your annual license fees will be maybe 1 or 2 days of your day rates. And then you kind of stand back and go, come on, 0.5% for what essentially is driving a large chunk of your value. It's very hard to do value pricing, but then you have to kind of balance that between, well, this person's charging the equivalent of our annual price per day for their time. So are we pricing people out? No secret that some of our competitors have been offering things for free. What's very interesting for me, and in experiencing this, and I've seen this firsthand multiple times, where we've had customers that go, our management is saying that we need to move to this software because it's free, but we don't want to because we just can't get the work done in the same way. And we've had multiple customers that have kind of left us because they're like, well, we've got a free version now. We don't need, Microsoft Word anymore. We've got Open Office. And they use it for a while and go, actually, can we have Microsoft Word again? Because, it just worked. There will be some new pieces of our software coming out this year, which are probably more aimed at a more the hobbyist prosumer space. And we will be pricing those more in line with what you might expect from a hobbyist space. Clearly, if I'm not going to be making money out of this, then that value argument will be different. But these are kind of more driven around where that software is and who it's for. And I think in the kind of industries that we serve, in architecture, in media and entertainment, we're not the most expensive, maybe. We're certainly, I would say we are the most powerful, but we're certainly not the cheapest either.
Lots of free things as well are only free until the investors decide that they need their money back. And then suddenly there's a huge price tag. Last time we spoke, you said that you obviously create products for creatives and that is different. That's one of the kind of pleasures of what you do at Chaos. How is that different from product management that is for less creative endeavors?
This is a beautiful question, Adam, because if you think about when the last time that you were creative, and particularly if you're being creative visually, I mean, we may talk about Gen AI later, but this is visual creatives, right? It's not just utilities. This is a tool. This is your instrument of expression. And your instrument of expression as an artistic tool is an extension of your creative vision. It can't get in the way. It's got to be really powerful functionally, but it needs to be inspiring to use, not just intuitive, inspiring to use. And that makes it quite challenging for product development, right? Because you're not just solving the technical problem, you're enabling an artistic workflow. So you've got to have a really deep understanding of the creative process, and obviously how that comes to life in each industry. And because, to your point exactly, creatives are a diverse bunch. What works for one artist and what kind of a thing might not work for another. And actually, this really comes to life when you look at things like Corona and V-Ray. The reason they do very similar things, but Corona is about just press this button, we give you a most beautiful image without you having to do anything. And if you want to really tweak it, it's not really there. Whereas V-Ray is okay, now you have absolutely control over absolutely everything, and so you can tweak everything to your heart's content. It's really for us to be able to empower, for a better word, to help artists push the boundary of what's possible in certain cases, for others to make it super accessible, really democratize their ability to be able to create something without too much Arctic, and then just get out of the way. The tool is an extension of their creative flow rather than something that I have to do and figure out in order to get the thing that is in my head out. And I think that's one of the main challenges that, maybe in enterprise resource management is not quite the same problem.
Do you think that the kind of product manager who is good at your job at creating products for creatives, do you think that the skills or attributes are different at all to somebody who is a product manager for, I don't know, an ERP system or something? Do you think it suits a different kind of person?
If you've never been creative before, and if you don't have a creative kind of streak, and if you really don't get that and haven't lived it, it's to some capacity, I think it could be quite difficult to get why it is that just providing the functionality and yes, it's easy to use and you've provided the functionality, why it is that that won't be inspiring. So I think there is maybe that ingredient, and I don't know if such exactly the same thing exists in the ERP space, for a better word, or if you're creating some HR management system, right? Do you need to have lived as a HR person and who have experienced it in order to come up with the epics and the user stories to be able to build those things? I'm not sure. I think it certainly is something that clearly when we've looked at and we've hired product managers specifically with backgrounds in these domains, or they've used our software, where we've had people that have come in from a more tangential background, I think folks have struggled to really get into the details of nitty gritty of, like, you have to have a passion. You have to have a passion for what you're doing. Does that passion exist irrespective of what product you're creating? I would hope so, but certainly in our space, and when you see how our software is being used to bring people's ideas to life, it's incredibly fulfilling. It's a real kind of kudos when well, you're watching Star Wars. Hey, all of that was rendered with V-Ray. It's something that is kind of amplifies the output of what you do that might not exactly exist if, for instance, the ERP system is working as it should. And I think the bar is just that little bit different in the kind of the challenges that you might have as a product leader. It's very invigorating. At the same time, I think you kind of have to love creatives and put up with that and be able to create things for them. So I think there is some difference in there.
Is there a trade-off at all between giving creatives control and ensuring that creatives have all of the functionality they need in order to create something really specific and give the kind of complete freedom, versus, I guess, making the creative process easy and intuitive and underwriting a sort of successful outcome for them, making sure that whatever they do in the software, they're going to produce something brilliant? How do you manage that trade-off?
Fine balance. It's, exactly as you said. On the one hand, we want the creative to be able to visualize the uniqueness of what it is that they're trying to do. On the other hand, we want to make sure that they get the best outcomes and the quality that they end up is not just dependent on the skills of them being able to leverage the tools. I think we do this in a couple of different ways, or maybe more. We have some smart defaults, which is always helpful. We have some assistive features in our products, and we're building even more of those assistive features, things that help you just be able to get to the kind of results that you want out of the box, make that easier, to then kind of provide some safety nets for beginners. And some of those things comes down to the product choice. So if you are a beginner and if you're, let's say, an architectural visualizer and you want to get a really beautiful image, you're not a master at rendering. Our recommendation would be, have you tried Corona? Because you just press render and it looks beautiful. We control the light for you. We do a whole lot of things in the background so that the first time you render something, it's beautiful. And that's fantastic. Now, you're a beginner, so you're going to immediately be satisfied with it. But as a pro, you're going to look at it and go, I want a little bit more of this and a little bit more of that, and I want to be able to do this and that. And that's where you would use something like V-Ray, where you have all of those controls. Now, with things like AI, with smart technologies, with ways of being able to help beginners bridge that gap, that is one of the things. And in terms of kind of that balance of control, some of it comes down to, this product, like with Enscape, we're very, very, very strict on what goes in. It needs to be exactly the same, no more than 10 buttons. That's it. Like, keep it super simple. With something like V-Ray, I don't know how many thousands of different parameters it has, but it's built for someone who is a complete expert. It takes a while. Definitely takes a while to become an expert.
You mentioned generative AI earlier. I've got to ask about it. It's the main thing happening in the kind of product universe at the minute. And I would imagine it is impacting the visual art space in a massive way. So could you just give us a kind of quick sketch of how you're seeing Gen AI impact the market that you're in?
We are living in the Gen AI era, right? Didn't exist 2 years ago. Suddenly it's now everywhere. Anybody can create a beautiful photorealistic image from just a simple text prompt, whether you're using like Midjourney or Stable Diffusion. And these, I think in the short term, it has multiple impacts. These are great tools for ideation, for concept exploration. At the same time, I think they kind of, and this is what we're seeing, devalue what a real creative, a real artist could bring to bear, which, and maybe this is the same with, in the world of blogs, we're seeing entirely automated ChatGPT written blogs that you just know it was written by ChatGPT, and you immediately know that it really has no substance. Yes, okay, it's regurgitated something. And so it takes a while for someone who's never done anything in visual to kind of go, actually, you know what? This isn't exactly what I was looking for. And this wasn't exactly in my mind. And I think as we move forward in and creating, really starting to shape Gen AI in a way that we can control it more. It's very easy to do with text because you could just edit the text, but in something that is more visual, unless you end up with things that are editable in some way. And that's, by the way, that is starting to happen, right? Then, because for better or worse, replacing human artistry with machines entirely kind of seems a little bit strange to me. And it just seems like it's not really what we're after. We don't want ChatGPT to write a fantastic book for us. We want it to help us. We want it to help us streamline our workflow, maybe to automate some of the more repetitive things, to provide more varieties, to kind of help us bring what we have in our minds and in our heads as creatives to life. And I think we're still somewhat in the beginning of that journey. And so, this kind of set of tools that you need to really leverage Gen AI as a creative, particularly in the visual space, it's still very much developing. And for us, where we deal with 3D scenes, where the materials are defined, the lighting is defined, the camera path is defined, how it looks is defined. What we see in some of the Gen AI tools, it looks out of the box like it's got everything, but actually it's not exactly what you wanted, and then you can't even look at it from the other direction. But I think that gap is something that clearly we're working on, others are working on, and we want to be able to bridge that gap and then to integrate what it can do better, which is variety, which is streamline, which is automation of some task, which is providing more suggestions, but for the artist or for the creative to retain the ability to control, to retain the ability to bring what it is that they had in their mind to life, not just what was at the end of a prompt in an AI space.
Fantastic.
Building Globally was brought to you by Global App Testing. To find out more about how best-in-class functional and UX testing can help your product grow, head to globalapptesting.com. If you enjoyed what you just heard, click follow on the platform you're using right now. Building Globally is available anywhere you get your podcasts.